Well, welcome to another edition of Voices of Video. Thank you, as always, for spending your precious time with us. Every week, sometimes a little more frequently, sometimes a little less frequently, we bring conversations from those who are building some of the coolest, the most advanced, the most innovative, and just the special workflows in video streaming. And today I'm joined by Joe Waltzer, who's CEO and founder of Arcadian. Joe, welcome to Voices of Video.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks for having me. It's good to see you again. Always appreciate you letting us talk.
Yeah, absolutely. We've recently, our two companies started working together, and you're doing some really cool things. I don't know that everyone in our audience knows who Arcadian is, but they soon will. So why don't you give that 3-minute elevator pitch, or 2-minute, or however long an elevator pitch is?
Sure.
About Arcadian.
Yeah. Absolutely. So we are a company that helps content creators deliver content to their customers. So whatever that entails, we have an engineering team that will build applications. We have a QA team that will validate the quality of the content. We have a media services division that will help you transcode and set up, custom workflows to get that content from your post-production all the way through the pipeline, all the way to your customers. So you have a wonderful experience. They love what they see. So that's where we sit in the space. And, we have lots of different customers in different parts of those little areas I talked about. And that's who we are. That's what we do.
It's a big job. The media workflow end to end, for a lot of us, myself included, and NetInt, we play in this very, very narrow little sort of niche, the video encoding portion. But when you look at everything that goes into delivering an asset, there's a lot to it, right?
Oh, it's incredibly complex.
Yeah.
And it can be incredibly simple as well, because it's all very commoditized at this point. I mean, the technology has sort of been laid out, but putting it all together in a way that works for customers and clients that's where the secret sauce is.
That's the secret sauce.
Yeah. I mean, when you start looking at all the things that can go wrong with a subtitle file or an audio file or even a video file, and how to fix those in an efficient way. Yeah, we build some pretty complex solutions that solve a lot of crazy problems. I mean, we could tell stories. I could tell stories forever about all the wacky content.
Yeah. Well, let's, I think some of those stories will come out even in this, in our interview together today. But now you are working primarily or even exclusively with Hollywood studios, or when you talk about content creators, who is that primarily? Who are they primarily?
Biggest client, Hollywood studios, for sure. That's where most of our work comes from. But we're branching out. We work now with sort of regional carriers in Southeast Asia. We've got a couple clients out there. Some, from like a channel specific company to, conglomerates in some of the countries out there that are sort of the big players, like TV stations, places like that. So most of our work is for studios. That's where we sort of started, and that's still our bread and butter. But we'll deal with anyone who has content and needs it to be delivered to the clients.
Sure.
We're branching out and trying to help everyone. The expertise that we learned with the studios applies to everybody. Applies to anyone who has content, needs to get it out.
Yeah, absolutely. So, in the context of solving all of these problems, maybe a good place to start is tell us how you approach building your platforms, especially when it's on the distribution side of content. So encoding it, you obviously have to encode it. There's a transcode function. There's different resolutions that platforms require. There's different bit rates. There's different codecs. So I'm curious, are you building these as bespoke solutions, again, for each client to meet their very specific needs, or do you bring a product, or do you have sort of a platform that then you extend based on requirements?
So one of the things I wanted to do when I started this originally was stay away from solutions that we would resell. I have a lot of experience in the space, and a lot of my experiences coming from the other side were that when I was dealing with a partner, it was sort of, they were always pitching what they had. And it wasn't always what I wanted. And it felt like I was never getting all the things I needed from, I always had to pick a partner that was doing like 90% of what I wanted. Then I had to go figure out the other 10 or 15%. And it was great. There's a lot of great solutions out there. And I position Arcadian as more of a services integrator. So we have a lot of contacts in the industry, a lot of tech solutions. So we work with all sorts, like AWS and Azure and all the cloud providers, and there's Hybrid, and I could go on forever. So our role is to help you make the best decision based on what you need. And we're not trying to sell you anything more than just the services to make that happen. So our team sits down with you. What do you need? Like you said, what transcodes you're looking for. So we have the expertise to say, who is your target audience? Are you streaming to high-end 4K TV? Are you in the US? Are you overseas? Are you in Europe? Are you in Asia? Like who are you trying to get to? And then how do we get your content to those people in the best way possible? And then we build custom solutions. It's all bespoke. It's all, it's yours. You want it to work for hire. So at the end of the day, you walk away and, that's your system that we built for you, and you can do what you want with it. We can help you expand it, or
exactly.
We don't have anything that we're trying to license or sell.
Yeah. It's very, I think, it's good positioning. I like the whole idea of the, the services integrator, because it definitely is true. It rings true to me that, video workflows, it's amazing. Everything's a standard, right? So that should be simple, but there's literally 100 variations of every single standard. And I don't think there's a single standard that we deal with that is implemented the same way across all the various platforms. And so when you bring a ready-made product or solution, there is always this component to it of like, we have everything but, and then you go to the next, the next customer, the next platform, the next, product requirements. And, it's like, we got that piece covered that we didn't have for the last customer, but now there's a new thing. And you're just like,
Yeah, it's the thing we see probably the most, that a lot of people, when they come to us, there's somebody at the company who's thought this through. They're the product owners, if you will, and they understand what they want and what they're trying to deliver. And they usually have commitments in some direction. So, they're committed to AWS or they're committed to Azure. They have sort of these high level requirements, and they've gotten to this point where they realize that putting that all together is way more of a challenge than they thought. Because, it seems like, hey, I have all these solutions in place. I just got to, turn some knobs and do a couple things that should start working. But, you don't realize that your IMF files are formatted in a way that doesn't work for the, the transcoding partner you're using. They have to, they've seen everything, and they just, the devil's in the details, because as everyone who uses tech knows, that the one little thing that goes wrong will stop the whole process. And it's all got to work seamlessly, and it's all got to be robust. It's got to, survive issues and faults and it's got to be well built. Otherwise, you're going to spend more money chasing down bugs and crashes and production issues than you realize. And I think that's sort of the expertise we bring, is that we can help you work through, this is a great tool, and this is a great tool, and this is the best way to connect them so that they work together properly. Because that's usually what's missing at the end of the day, is everyone has slightly different requirements, slightly different needs, slightly different partnerships. And there's no one-stop shop solution. Everyone will try to sell you that, and that's why I wanted to get away from that, because you'll go to a partner like, hey, if you license our product, it solves all of your problems. And then you get down to implementation, and it's like, wait a minute, this doesn't work. And now we end up having to build a custom solution, or not doing what we want, or spending more money than we thought. And it just doesn't quite get into the end line, to the goal line. So we've stepped into quite a few places and said, okay, here's how we get you there. Here's what it'll cost. Very transparent about upfront pricing and all that stuff, and time, and trying to be as clear as we can about the complexities of the situation. And so that's the service we bring to our customers. And it's been great. We've been doing this for 5.5 years now.
Yeah, it's a real, it's an important service that you provide, and it's why you've built a nice business around it. And, and that's even how I think we ultimately engaged, is that as the market is coming around to a realization that OpEx matters. And that some of these, and I say that, with a chuckle, right? Because it should be like, well, obviously. But yet I think there was a period of time, especially as some of these platforms and services were being built out and didn't have the utilization they have today. You know what? Just spinning up servers on the cloud was probably the right choice, actually, at that time, because it could be done very easily. You didn't have to bear the burden of the CapEx and everything we know about the cloud, right? But I know that you're seeing from your customers, and we're certainly seeing from our customers. And again, that's partially not only what brings us together, but what's brought us together is people are saying this isn't sustainable. Like just running CPUs, more CPUs in the cloud, buying more instances, renting more instances, and running software is just simply not sustainable. And so then that's bringing in the need for dedicated hardware. And as soon as you do that, you now need new system architectures. And then that's where people go, hang on, either I don't have the engineering capacity to build it, or I have the engineering capacity, but I want my in-house team working on other things. And that's where they bring in you and Arcadian.
Yeah, that's it exactly. Can't tell you how many times we've talked about the cloud and how amazing it is, and then how much of a burden it can be. And don't get me wrong, I love AWS, I love Azure. They have revolutionized everything I've done. I mean, it's an incredible service, but if you aren't looking at it the right way, you get stuck. And a lot of clients, like you said, they use it because it's quick and it's easy and it's very helpful and it gets you started really fast. And any startup should be using AWS. Don't buy your own hardware if you're starting up. Just get it in the cloud and get it working, that kind of thing. And then as you start to scale, if you're not thinking about what the next steps are or the next use case, you get stuck. And this is the big conversation we have is a lot of people have built these platforms and these workflows for a single use case. So they launched the streaming service and they used AWS or Azure, and that's their partner. And things have gone well, and it cost them a lot of money, and they got it up and running. And now they're like, this is exciting. Let's do another streaming service. Let's make a fast service. Let's do some AVOD one-off. Let's talk to one specific market in Latin America, and let's use this tech we have. And then they're like, this doesn't work this way.
It doesn't work. The economics don't work. My CPMs aren't high enough, to pay for the infrastructure. Yeah.
And it's not built for all of the nuances that we talked about for that particular market, and re-engineering it to do that. That wasn't a thought. So they're just like, it's going to cost more money to adapt the current system than it would to build a new system. And we see that a lot. We see a lot of companies just rebuilding the same system and over again because this is how they went. And that's very normal. I think that's just how business works. It's hard to have that foresight, but that's where we step in and can help and say, wait, well, we can sort of salvage this. We build a lot of modular parts. So when we build you a service, there's a transcoding service that is just for transcoding. It's got nothing to do with, this being a 4K US based service. It'll transcode anything from, high end Marvel movies all the way down to your back catalog. And so when you pivot and you want to do fast and you need something built for that, this is built for that. It's built to be efficient at all levels. So that's how we come to the process. We're trying to help think about what's your problem now, but also how will this be useful in the future for you? So we don't have to come back in 4 years and build it again and build it again. I spent a lot of time in the industry doing that, and we're just reinventing the wheel, and we're trying to sort of solve that problem for people.
Sure. Yeah, exactly. Well, I think it's fascinating. I a number of years back spent a considerable amount of time selling into the studios and dealing with all of the technology heads of the studios. And this is back in 2012, 13, 14, 15, which is now more than 10 years ago. How time flies. But that was, for some of the studios, that was exactly when they were dipping the toe in the water of going direct, taking their content direct. So, they had been licensing out content onto even Netflix for 5-6 years at that point. Absolutely. So it wasn't the streaming itself was new, but many of them were just, hey, we're in the licensing business. We license to the distributor, and then it's on them to make money. And I know you and I had talked the other day as we were preparing for our conversation about the fact that, what you build for, a major tentpole movie, let's just say Spider-Man, the infrastructure and the technology you build to deliver Spider-Man and all those kinds of movies suddenly just doesn't work. Not that it doesn't technically works fine, but it doesn't work economically when you say we've got this massive back catalog, that we can monetize with fast or with some other, free or, maybe with a subsidized type subscription fee, very low subscription with ads, kind of an offer. So I'm curious if you can comment about, what you're hearing, seeing, and even, maybe tell us some examples of what you're building to help studios, take their back catalog and actually make money with it.
That's probably becoming our specialty, I would say. And it's mostly because it's easy to make easy to make money off Spider-Man, right? Yeah. Everyone wants to watch Spider-Man.
Yeah, it's a major franchise.
You could spend quite a bit of money building some infrastructure and streaming Spider-Man and Marvel and all the big movies, and you'll be doing just fine. Yeah. As we see, like there's lots of people who are doing great with all this new content. But when you take that same infrastructure that you didn't think about back catalog, it just becomes this whole nother world because the source files are very different, right? The quality of the inputs is very different. You get terrible audio quality, you get misaligned audio, you get subtitles that are just who knows what happened there. Yeah. There's been so many cuts made to the movie over the years that they're all mixed together. So a movie will have 7 cuts, 7 alphas, and the audio is all just in one spot, and they all sort of and it's a mess. It's a lot of
I chuckle.
Operational work.
Sorry for interrupting, but I chuckle because a lot of our audience are just never have had to encounter this world, and I think have a view that if it comes out of a major studio, it's just pristine. The files are all, and when you get in and you see how the sausage is made, you say, "Holy cow!" And again, incredible. It's not because there aren't incredibly capable people working in operations at the studios. It's just over the years, exactly what you said. It's like there's different cuts, there's different versions, there's files that originally it was a 5.1 simple Dolby Digital mix, and then suddenly someone came along and said, well, let's try and turn this into Atmos, and and you begin to compound, and
it's anyone who's
keeping
seen it
track,
knows
making sense of it is really hard.
There were so many people listening who were like, I know the pain because they've back and they've seen, and then for a long time the studios were sort of handing that off a little bit too, and we get a lot of customers coming to us and asking questions because they're distributors, right? They're not content creators. They're sort of the middleman. They're licensing content, and the studios are just sending them this pile of stuff.
Yeah, and they're going, what do I do with all these files? How do I?
And they can't. They're like, well, this is a problem because now the problem is on us. Netflix has famously made subtitles for like hundreds and hundreds of languages that just weren't available. So when you go to Netflix and see a subtitle for a language, it's probably made by Netflix, and then it's owned by Netflix, and the studios are now having conversations like, wait, why aren't we making that subtitle so that we can then leverage that and license that? Why are we handing off all of these problems continuously and causing all these headaches for our partners when we should be upstream fixing these and helping utilize our back catalogs more? So we're having a couple of conversations now with people that were interested in how do we do this from the beginning? How do we do it right? How do we store it in a way that's accessible and easy to get to? And then how do we distribute it internally and then externally? Yeah. And what does that look like? And, we get really excited because I think there's a lot of potential there. If some people in the studios can sort of get together and say, hey, there's a better way to distribute movies in this new day and age, right? It's not all new stuff. The back catalog is very valuable. I hear that the Game Show Network is doing gangbusters and running reruns of old TV shows from the 80s, right? Soap operas. There's so much content out there that people haven't been exposed to that is basically new to them. And it's sitting in a vault. It's sitting in a folder somewhere. It's probably in a bucket in S3. and it's a mess.
Yeah.
And that's what we've been doing for 5.5 years, is undoing these messes and building workflows and custom solutions like we talked about to unravel what we have and then, get it to you as efficiently as possible. So yeah, it's probably 80% of what we do is back catalog stuff. Because the new stuff is fairly straightforward and people don't usually have a lot of questions, and they'll have partners and they'll go to them. And building websites is, again, fairly commoditized now. So we don't have any special sauce there for anyone. I don't have a licensed product. I would be a custom solution. So most of the business we get are people like, wait, how do we fix these back catalog issues?
Yeah.
And like I said, I feel like we've seen it all. We've seen lots and lots and lots of problems, and they're solvable. It's something you can work with, but you just got to fight through what you're getting and where it's supposed to go and just understand the process.
Yeah, exactly. So, so let's talk about, then the new architectures that are required, because what is probably a given and would make sense is, okay, even though this is back catalog, I think even when we were talking the other day, maybe this is your favorite movie or you just grabbed it out of the air, but it's a great movie. Let's see, what was the movie actually? Now I'm blanking out on
A Few Good Men.
Yeah, A Few Good Men.
Yes.
That's right. Yeah, because it's funny. When you said that, I went, oh, I haven't seen that movie in years, but it is awesome. I made a mental note, which I obviously forgot, but I made a mental note. I need to watch that movie again. But there's a lot of those movies, and there's many that are Oscar winners and that are a part of, quote unquote, the back catalog. And yet the studios are, maybe willing to, they obviously do need to cut cost in terms of what it costs to prepare it and distribute it. And, just because you have to be able to do that economically for what you can make on advertising largely. But at the same time, they're not willing to completely cut the quality. There's a little bit of a tension, right? You need to cut costs really considerably, but you still have to deliver high quality. So tell us what the workflows, where are you then having to say, hey, we really can't touch anything here because, what we're doing today is, like if we do that, we're going to affect quality. And then where are you finding you can bring efficiencies, where the 80-20 rule, right? Where hopefully you could save 80%, but you're really only impacting quality, by a much, much, much smaller percent. What did that look like for you as you're building these systems? And
well, you nailed it. Every studio, everyone we talk to, any content creator wants the highest quality. I have never had a conversation with someone who said, I don't care what this looks like. I
don't care about quality. Just give me low cost.
No one has ever said that to me. I don't think I'll ever have that conversation. Everyone wants a good experience for the users because that's what the users demand and that's what they should want. So we always start there. This is how we maintain quality. This is how we even increase quality. So, like doing translations and adding more content to make it more accessible. We've looked in dubbing and other things like that. And, we're always trying to be on the cutting edge of, let's say, AI dubbing, if that's something we can offer. And spoiler alert, it's not quite there yet, but it's getting there. So we're always trying to help not only maintain the quality, but make it a better experience for the users, like create subtitles and translations for them and do things that like that. We've done upscaling, we've done upcoloring, we've done a whole bunch of workflows. We've went from 5.1 to Atmos and DTSX. So we're doing a lot that not only maintains the quality, but enhances the quality. And you're right, you can't compromise on quality. So you got to find better places to be efficient. And a lot of what we do is unwinding complexity. There's a lot of, I think when most people approach these problems, especially at the studios and places where there's just lots of people involved, there's usually 5 or 6 departments, right, that are all upstream and downstream, and each one has their own way of doing things. And then there's no one who can sort of get them all to talk together. And it creates these sort of weird bottlenecks where things are not moving in a way they should. And so we help bridge that gap by building some tech that can sort of solve this. Hey, this department has it in this format, in this system, because there's always some other system out there that we have to access to get the stuff. And it needs to go into this department's new CMS system for this reason. So we're getting really good at sort of bridging those gaps and helping departments talk to each other. And that's where we get a lot of efficiency, especially at the studios, because it can be complicated how things, saw a chart back in the day in the studio, and I won't name the name, but there were, I believe, 17 different steps where metadata started here.
Yeah.
By the time it got to the users, there had been 17 people or places that had touched it on the way. And it was so complex that we were building apps and technologies. So at the end, we could validate that this was valid tech and valid metadata. So we were just basically parsing what came out and said, is this blank? Is this not? I mean, like just basic stuff, but it was so complicated for them to just source metadata properly and get it out to users that's what we had to do. And that's, I think, sort of part of the system. Like you said, it's been here. The studios have been around forever, and they've just been building systems on top of systems. So a lot of us is just understanding the systems, and that can be complex in itself, and then tying those together. And we get a lot of efficiencies when you start, speaking holistically instead of just departmentally. So that's helped us quite a bit. And then there's just efficiency with understanding all the options, right? So do you want to be in the cloud? Do you want to be on-prem? What technology are you using to do this thing? Are you doing manual labor when you shouldn't? There's a lot of sort of manual processes that we can automate. We do a lot of automation and finding new technologies that make things very simple, very efficient. So those are probably our big ones, is just understanding how to communicate with the people involved in solving the problems in a way that works for everyone. That's a skill just in and of itself. And who's been in a big corporation knows that those internal communications can be some of the hardest things. And then understanding the technology and talking to partners like yourself, and the VPUs you offer we love having that information because we can go to our partners and say, hey, well, there's this new tech out there and it saves you a bundle. It's fast, it's efficient.
Yeah.
You'll be shocked. And there's technologies out there that shock people when they say, wait, that's for real. And you're like, yeah, I can transcode your stuff.
Yeah.
Super fast, super easy.
Yeah.
If you want your data center, you probably have it on-prem, and I'll just install it and I'll build a system on top of it that won't cost you that much, and it'll run the whole studio on there if you want.
That's right.
And they're sort of shocked, but that's where we get most of our efficiencies. It's just having the knowledge and the ability to sort of understand the problem and find the solutions.
It really is. It's fascinating how so much in business, in some ways, I'd say so much in life, really just comes down to problem solving, right?
Absolutely.
It's like, hey, I'm trying to better connect with my spouse, or my kids, or my neighbor, or business. It's like, it's problem solving. There's a disconnect. How can I figure out where that is? How can I bridge that? And when you kind of just break it down to like its most basic, like in this case for solving these issues for efficiency for the studios, like you say, some of it is just starting with, geez, let's remove some complexity. Do we need 17 steps? Well, we need 8. It'd be great if we could have 10, but no, we don't need 17, and like, wow, right there, and on the encoding side, lots of room there for efficiency, because over the years, as codec standards have gotten added, different encoders. In some cases, there's 3, 4, 5, 6 different encoders. I also will not name the studio, but you know them very well. And I can recall just being I was speechless when I was in a senior director's office, and there was a very old Mac computer on a cart. I don't even remember, it was a Mac 2 CX or what it was, but it was old on a cart. And it clearly was being used because the keyboard, you could tell it's being used, but it was unplugged. And, I'm a Mac fan. And so we started a conversation, and this person casually says, I don't use it that much. I don't even remember, but once a month, twice, every couple months, I fire it up because we have to create an encode of one format that only ran on that machine. In this guy's office. Now, this was more than 10 years ago. And so I'm sure by now that Mac has been retired. And, but it was just like, I remember walking out, slapping my forehead going, this is one of the biggest, we all watch and love their content, and there's something they deliver, and it's on a cart in somebody's office. And that's the machine, that's used to encode. So it's fascinating. Why don't we talk about, because a lot of our audience are involved in the encoding side of the workflow, and so they're kind of waiting for, so how the studios make decisions on encoders. And, you know, so I am curious, for most of your clients, are they coming to you with a prescribed, hey, we've chosen, you know, this software solution, or we're running this hardware, or, you know, in other words, they're sort of dictating to you, you know, what they've chosen? Or are they sort of past that? And a lot of it is, look, we just need to validate the quality, and however you get there, it's up to you? Or what does that look like?
That's a great question. It's a mix of both. Although the bigger studios have more of a, this is how things work and we can't change things because, you know, this was decided by sort of a department or another division.
Well, although the days of the golden eyes, I think have sort of gone away. But, you know, I remember very keenly the days where literally they were called golden eyes, and literally they were the ones who could say pass or fail, you know. Yes.
So those people still exist, and they still have influence, and they're actually great people. I've met a bunch of people in the studios who are in charge of sort of approving new workflows, and hey, this SDR to HDR conversion is approved through the studio and things like that. So we do have lots of conversations like that. There's lots of workflows that are sort of pre-approved, and then there's some considerations that come through, like legal considerations. Some of the studios own like parts of the H.264 codec. So since they're a licensor, they're not going to use any of the Google, the VP, you know, 8 or 9. They're not allowed to, because that's against, even if it's a better choice for them. Technically. So it's like everything else. You sort of have to understand what their specific situation is and why they are where they are and what they're trying to do, and then work around that. And mostly on the edges, you can just recommend, and they're always very amenable to the conversation. Like, oh, why would you choose this software instead of this software? We've used this forever. And you could just do a quick, well, here's why. And once you show them that the other way is more efficient and they save money, then they're like, oh, well, that's okay. That makes sense. Yeah. So it's usually high level decisions around some fairly big financial or legal or, you know, just high level quality stuff. But I've never felt like anyone was blocking us from having a good solution for silly reasons. They're always, I think the days of them saying this is how we do it and there's no other way are over there. They're learning that they've got to be flexible.
They need to, they need to be flexible, and they need to, I agree. We certainly see that as well. You know, of course, we're very proud of the fact that our VPUs, the Quadra, our second generation, produces really stunning quality. And, you know, can you beat it with a highly tuned, highly optimized software encoder? Absolutely, day and night. You know, but that's a given, because I have access to all of the knobs, and I can throw a ton of compute at it. And, you know, when you're not fixed function, you can do more, right? But I think there's a very, very healthy balance right now on the premium. We're seeing it, and, you know, I assume you're seeing it based on your comments too, where the premium suppliers, so the vertically integrated media companies, you know, those who own content that's highly, highly valuable, you know, franchises that could be worth billions, you know, where they're reaching this more, shall we say, balanced perspective between how much they're going to invest in delivering a certain amount of quality, and then what's really required by the consumer. You know, how many consumers are watching, and I won't say any names, but it doesn't matter, you know, any of your favorite streaming services, and almost all of them have the top paid plan, which is where you get 4K.
Yep.
As soon as you go, sometimes you just go the next level down, not to the free tier, but even the sort of subsidized tier, and your highest profile is 1080p.
Yep.
How many consumers are perfectly happy, do not feel they're getting a bad experience, in fact, tell their friends how great their new 4K TV looks while they're streaming 1080p? You know, happens a lot.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So, yeah. So
it's sort of a curse of being in the industry, is that, as you know, as you do this more and more, you can see the problems.
Yeah.
Like when I watch a 4K TV, I can clearly see the difference between all sorts of different
100%.
things and bit rates. And, you know, I'm too into the weeds to not see these things. But when you have conversations with people, and this is we have a lot of these conversations when we talk to clients, because they tend to get more excited about some of the cool stuff they could do, and let's do this and this and this, and we can up-res to 4K and lots of conversations like that. And we always want to say, hey, this is the consumer you told us we were going for. Yeah. Do they care? Are they, is this going to be material impactful to them that you're going to, because this is expensive. What you're asking us to do is a big workflow. So we're always just trying to make sure and stopping and, hey, let's have a check-in, because it's easy to get carried away with cool new tech. It's easy as the industry experts to be like, this is an improvement. And wow, look at that new visual fidelity. And look at that, like, hey, we're saving all this money on this, and this. And, that we went up to 24 megabits from 18. And look, you can tell if you look here, and here. And so there's a lot of like, let's just step back, because we're talking to the consumer, not to you. You won't, that's right. You're not the only person. So we do have all those conversations, and they're just conversations to have. And it's not because we think we're experts on what consumer taste is. That's not where we're at, but we always want to have the conversation, because we want to understand everyone's intentions, because it's tough. It's tough to step back and say, how do the consumers see this? And do we really need to spend this money on something that, for the most part, people, the 8K was a big one. I'll talk about that, because people were very high in 8K for a long time, a year and a half, 2 years ago.
I would love to hear your experience there, because I can't even remember the last time I was in a session at an industry event and there was discussion of 8K, but boy, it was hot for a short period.
Yeah. And we kept having that conversation, because we'd say, if we do 8K, that's basically 4 times more expensive than 4K.
Yes.
You get some efficiencies with the new codecs, but you're talking the H.265, H.266 just to make it reasonable to stream it. And, now you're talking less devices, like H.265 on device hardware decoding isn't a thing in a lot of places. So you can't it's just like 8K is cool. Yeah. And when you see an 8K TV and an 8K image and it's flying and you're standing there in front of 120 inches of beauty, you're like, this is amazing. Yeah. But that's when you have the conversation. Like, this is going to cost 4 to 5 times as much as your 4K stream, which how many people are even watching that? This is going to cost 16, 20 times your 1080p stream. Let's all step back and just make sure we're doing this for the right reasons. And we're happy to help you if that's what you want. But, we do a lot of our conversations are the reality, because we talk to a lot of people who are just passionate and they just want to do the best for their customers and everything else. Yeah. And then we usually end up stepping in and saying, okay, this is what this is going to cost compared to your current workflow. Yeah. And then the conversation is like, oh, okay, yeah, you're right. That's probably not worth the effort.
Yeah, absolutely. My observation of everybody, and I'm not trying to single out, Disney does a great job at Disney Plus. So my reference to Netflix is not to, say, they're the only ones doing a great job. But, let's face it. I think universally Netflix is a standard that, certainly as I travel around the world, you literally hear the comments from incumbents in that region, in that country, who say, we need to be at Netflix quality. That's what we're shooting for, because their customers are consuming and that becomes their reference, So, but, I think the real, brilliance, magic, if you will, of Netflix, when people say, reach Netflix quality, is that they've done such a phenomenal job of figuring out how to optimize for that consumer experience and the balance that we're even talking about right now, So, you look at their 4K and you look at the bit rates, and obviously those of us who, are really into the weeds or into the pixels, that's a better way to put it, into the pixels, can make cases, where it's like, I can see where they traded off, here and there. And, I wish they would have, but when you step back and you look at their choices on the whole, you have to say it's brilliant, because it looks amazing when you look at the aggregate of the whole experience, over the course of a, hour episode of a TV show, or, a 2-hour movie or whatever. It looks brilliant. The trade-offs were usually
absolutely the right ones. Like if you're going to trade off, like they trade off in the right places.
Yep.
And that's in contrast to kind of the approach of a few years ago, before some of the advancements in the newer codec standards or things like content adaptive encoding, CAE, which, it's also funny. It's like even that's not talked about as much anymore because that's just built in to pretty much every encoder. Everybody's rate control has some sort of content adaptive, whether someone calls it that or, they might have some other marketing, name for it. I remember the days where, there were some, I remember some of the first 4K, I think it was the BBC streamed the World Cup. And look, this is not an indictment on the BBC because they're a very advanced organization. But this must have been 2017, maybe, somewhere around there. And they wrote a blog post about it even. So, I mean, even they pointed out, and they were streaming at 40 megabits. For 4K. And that's because they were not going to compromise on quality bar. Yep. It was 4K P60 and HEVC, obviously. And if you think about it back then, that was kind of the state of where things were, but they had a lot of difficulties with buffering, rebuffering events, etc. My point is that it's fascinating how we've all gotten more fit, in terms of our budgets, how much money we're spending on our operations. It's kind of like, okay, yes, we can easily spin that up over here. We can go, use this, commercial service or whatever, but is there a more efficient way? Meaning, is there a less expensive way? So we've gotten more fit, in our budgets. We've gotten more fit in our bit rates. We've gotten more fit in, just sort of balancing, where we're compromising, and, where we say, hey, that's not good enough, so we do need to, we need to do a better job there. So, and I think that helps everybody, help the consumer.
Yeah. And you make a great point about the quality and the desire to make it as the best possible, but at the same time, you're making your back end struggle. So is it even better quality? Like if you can't deliver the 4K to the client seamlessly, then you've made a bad decision. And the picture quality, the pixels, that would be amazing, but people are going to struggle to even see those pixels because
exactly.
It's so
and who cares if it's amazing quality, but every 60, 75 seconds there's a rebuffering event, or every 5 minutes. Like at some point, it's like even as a video file myself, I would. Especially if it's like a sporting event, or I would gladly trade off reducing quality for just a smooth experience,
Absolutely. And then
how much more would our customers, our viewers, our subscribers do that?
Yeah. I mean, there's just so many little things that go into that you have to look at holistically, because there's risks too. It might not crash your production environment, but if you have a really complicated ABR tree and a really complicated delivery system, and you're forcing yourself to go multi-CDN because you're gobbling up all this bandwidth, and that's a great, cool technical solution. We see a lot of that too. Like, this is a cool new way to do this tech. We're like, that's great too. But now there's so much complexity involved that it's going to be hard to fix. You want to keep things simple, and everyone appreciates having really high bandwidth streams and really brilliant pictures, but when it crashes and it doesn't work and you're getting written up in all the websites because your broadcast failed because the solution was just a little more fragile than you realized, it's not great. So lots of conversations around that, like, not just quality, but quality of delivery, quality of your infrastructure, just quality overall, and how do you make it all work?
I like to think of it as,
it's complicated.
But I like to think of it as UX, like user experience, and user experience in this context is the whole, it's what the user, experiences, and then what they value. So, well, Joe, let's bring the plane in for a landing, so to speak.
Sounds good.
This has been, great. I really feel just partially nostalgic because,
Me too.
I'm hearkening back as we're having conversations. You're sharing, your experiences. I'm hearkening back to really a very fond period in my career, where I got to spend a lot of time in LA and on the studio lots and, with these people doing amazing things. And, it really is amazing when you're in a screening room on a major studio lot and you're standing next to one or two or three of the golden eyes and they're sitting there, you're standing 3 or 4 feet off this massive screen and they're showing you what they're looking at. I mean, I can remember multiple times walking, back to the rental car and just being like, wow, like this is the coolest job ever.
It is. I love it. I love all of this. I love the problem solving. I love the fun tech. I love the conversations. I love talking to you about this stuff. This is what gets me up in the morning. It's an amazing industry. It combines technology and content and people from different walks of life.
It's cool.
Yeah,
it's cool.
It's unreal.
Well, let's wrap up with this though, because you have an interesting perspective that is slightly different than someone who's maybe building a video platform in a large social network or working in a streaming platform. What trends do you see coming? And let's not, we could discuss around maybe business models and things, but I'm not thinking that. But like technically, are you seeing people having more conversations around maybe certain codecs or, technology directions or the way they're building their workflows or the way they're thinking of building their workflows? Like anything stand out that would be interesting?
So the big one that stands out, and this has probably been happening forever, but I see it more and more, is sort of the repatriation from the cloud. We get a lot of people who are reevaluating what they're doing in the cloud and why they're doing it there. And, is it really the cost-effective way to do it? So we have a lot of conversations about people like, this is my infrastructure. It's all built in the cloud. Here's the bill I get every month. And it's enormous. And the bosses are like you said, everyone's sort of cost conscious now. And they're like, hey, how do we reduce this? So we have a lot of conversations about, okay, you could do this, this, and this, move this to on-prem. There's lots of ways to fix this. If you invest a little capital here, it gets you this gains here. So that's probably one of our biggest, just general conversations we see as a technology trend. And then the next one is the obvious one. It's AI. Everyone's asking about AI. I get probably more questions about AI than anything, but I don't have as many conversations because they don't go quite as far as everyone wants them to go. There's a lot of people sort of proposing AI solutions, and we've dug into quite a few of them, and we're always hopeful to find some sort of diamond in the rough that, hey, this really solves the problem.
It really works.
But none of them are quite there yet. So everyone's interested. We've got our eyes and ears out there looking for that. We talk to a lot of partners. That's what we do. A lot of conventions to sort of see what's out there and get a feel for where AI is taking us, because it's going to go somewhere. I mean, I think everyone agrees that the technology is sort of in its infancy and it's going to head somewhere interesting now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. And, we've seen VO get launched from Google, and it's amazing things are coming. So we have a lot of people asking if AI is the solution. And the answer right now is, I don't think it's what you think it is. I think it still is going to take a little more effort than you hope, and it's not really the turnkey solution you're looking for. But keep an eye out, because maybe one day it will be, or maybe one day it'll be close enough that it's gonna solve your problem. And then the other exciting thing about AI, I'd like to say, is that it starts to unlock sort of the creators in all of us. So these AI tools are allowing people who aren't movie studios to make compelling content. There's some amazing stuff out there. I was watching a creator that made ads that got on, I think it was the Super Bowl or something, that was just all AI generated, and it looks amazing. And this is just one person in their house with maybe another person on their team, and they're making really high quality content. So I'm excited to think more people are making more cool content. There'll be more content out there for specific audiences. You don't have to make $1 billion Marvel movies that are trying to cater to everyone. You can make some really good content that's just for a niche audience, but since it doesn't cost, $200 million to make, people can enjoy it, and you can make money by making specialized content. So AI is probably the big one that there's a lot of talk, as you know, and we're in all of that. And it's exciting times. It's really cool.
It is.
We're going to talk about this in 10, 20 years about how we were there for the AI revolution, I think.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I'm excited about all those same things, So yeah, the cloud repatriation that you're talking about, kind of that really is a big one, and it's actually fascinating. I somehow there's a guy who's a bit of an influencer in the SaaS software as a service business, and his company, he's built some pretty successful apps, and he's a real mover, thinker, shaker. He's an entrepreneur, CEO, technical guy, not in the video space at all. But he started talking a couple years ago and doing a lot of writing on X and LinkedIn and blog posts and whatever about their whole journey from moving their workflow off the cloud to 100% on-prem. And look, he's running general purpose compute because he's a SaaS company, right?
Sure.
But as I was reading the documentation of his journey, and beyond just the incredible cost savings and the efficiencies, it just became clear that there are tools that I think some days tools almost run their course. And again, not for everybody. And it also doesn't mean that even if you're going to maybe move one of your significant workflows on-prem, or you're going to do some sort of hybrid, that doesn't mean you're still going to have a whole bunch of other stuff in your business that should be running on public cloud. Like there's zero reason to go put it in a data center, So it's not like it's exactly a 0 or a 1, but this whole trend, I think it's a bit of a challenge because and I've never worked inside a cloud, so I can only peer in from the outside, and it's always easy to give advice, to people from the outside because I feel I'm so smart, and how come these people aren't getting with it? But I can sort of understand where they've enjoyed building a really profitable business, and it's hard to cut your rates, cut your costs. It's hard to do that, but I think they're going to have to. Just as a case in point, one of our partners just recently came to market, and in fact, when they announced their price card, I mean, we actually followed up twice with them, and be like, is this correct? Before we start amplifying this on LinkedIn and everything, are you sure that number is correct? They're like, yeah. Go to the website, and this is a public company. So, it's like, we go, it's correct. 42 cents an hour for a VM that's a very capable CPU with a VPU. So 42 cents an hour. And it's now they have this particular company has a 1 VPU and a 2 VPU solution. 1 VPU, for those who aren't familiar, capacity can do 32, 1080p 30, live encodes, AV1, HEVC, or H.264. And look, I'm not saying this to, that's why I'm intentionally not naming the company, because I'm not trying to but I'm saying 42 cents an hour. Now go to your favorite public cloud and kind of look at pricing, and then think about what it would take to encode 32 1080p 30 streams. It's going to be a lot more. And I don't mean 20% more. I mean multiples more, and that's exciting though for me. That's a challenge for the incumbents, but that's exciting for me because now these new business models like fast can get unlocked where we can deliver high quality, but do it incredibly economically. So
you're right. It's out there, and people don't know. And hopefully, maybe listening to this, they start to learn that there are those incredible solutions out there. Those things that you just I didn't even know that was possible.
Didn't even know.
Yeah. I mean, and we've actually, this is a fun story. I'll just end my little thing with this is that when we first started, that was our goal to be efficient enough that we could help you with back catalog stuff because we had to be inexpensive. And we have a team in the Philippines, and we've done a lot of stuff to just get operational efficiency out. Yeah. And we were quoting the studios. They were saying, hey, what would be the price to do XYZ, to convert this file to this type?
Yeah.
And we'd go through and we'd say, okay, it's this number. and they'd come back and say, that's so low, we don't believe you. They'd be like, that costs so little that we're going to disregard your bid because we think you're lying, and we think you're that kind of company who's just underbidding to get the business.
Yeah.
And so we actually had conversations internally like, geez, maybe we should just triple our costs so people believe us. But we're not going to do that. We just had to educate people like, no, it's because we've been doing this enough that we know.
Yeah, we've optimized how we deliver our service and our staffing, and everything's optimized. Even in our funny Joe, because so when you do benchmarks with the VPU compared to software, obviously H.264 is much less compute intensive than HEVC, and HEVC is less compute intensive than AV1. So if you're going to benchmark H.264, it's roughly about a 7 to 10x improvement VPU to CPU. 7 and 10x. And, as always, there can be a case where it's a little bit less. There can be cases where it's higher, but, and so that's where we get our 10x, improvement from.
Yeah.
When you go to HEVC, that becomes about 20x roughly. Again, it can be, 12, 14, 15 to 20, 22, but, somewhere in there. When you go to AV1, it's like 40x. Well, so, so then the discussion internally was, okay, we are accurate to claim a 40x improvement, because if you look at AV1, like that's, and, there were certain people who were like, 40x. And I said, guys, like, no one will believe us, number one. And then they're going to, another encoding vendor, don't even need to talk to those guys. They must be crazy, And I said, you know what? Even a 10x will make people's jaws drop and go, that sounds too good to be true, but let's go check it out. So that's why most of our marketing material, you'll see both 10x and 20x, sometimes based on kind of when the message was written and where our state of mind was at the time. And other times there's very specific reasons, but a lot of times you'll see 10x, because if I can bring anybody a 10x improvement, they're going to be, well, I need to validate it, but if this is true, sign me up, huge. And then when they find they might actually be getting a 20 or 30 or 40x, they're just like, they want to hug and kiss you. It's like, this is amazing. So
it's trust. You've been, I don't know if you've been on the other side, but I have. And it's people will tell you what you want to hear, so they get your business, and then they get you trapped in contracts. And it was the bane of, I think, everyone who's done this has been stuck with this contractor who said they would do a thing, and they made a promise, and it was hard to validate, and you trusted them, and then they didn't deliver. I think people, I've been burned so many times, and I get it. I get why you're like, that can't be true.
Yeah,
but it is. So you gotta get out of your comfort zone and trust people, because you're right with the VPUs. We've been looking into them. We have our clients are all excited. We're excited to use them. They're a revolution. They really are. They're going to unlock so many things I don't think people see now, because when you get to those efficiencies, all of a sudden HEVC isn't as much of a problem as you thought it was to work with.
That's right.
It's faster. That's right. Yeah, you don't have to spend $4 or $5 in the cloud to transcode that. You can put that in a non-prem PC that doesn't cost much, and you can start encoding HEVC at pennies. It went from dollars to pennies.
Correct.
And it adds up when you do 1,000, 2,000, 5,000 transcodes all at $5 each. That number is so big that people are like, that's not worth it.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, no, that's going to cost you 5 cents each. And like, oh, well, that's nothing.
Like,
it is nothing.
Really?
So
that's impossible. You're like, no. It's totally
trust
possible.
me. And then we have to build POCs. We're doing that right now, where we have a bunch of customers we're going to build these POCs for to prove that what we say is true, because it is. It's unbelievable. But that's how you build trust. You you talk, you're knowledgeable, and then you like, all right, well, let me show you. We'll do something for you, and we'll kind of prove it to you. And there's many exciting things happening, and VPUs is one of the ones that we're excited to help out with, because it really is. It's going to unlock a lot of things for a lot of our partners. Yeah,
that's great. Well, Joe, this has been a great conversation. Thank you for joining us on Voices of Video. Really appreciate it.
Anytime. Yeah, it was great. It's good to talk to you as always, Mark. Appreciate the time.
Yeah, thanks. Absolutely. Well, good. Well, I know that we're going to be together at IBC
In fact, you're going to be in our booth. So, for anybody, this episode will be coming out, probably 6 weeks or so before IBC starts. But make sure you come see Joe.
Yeah. Come say hi.
And come see Arcadian and come hang out in the VPU ecosystem booth, which is the NetInt booth. So
it's going to be a great time. We'd love to talk. Let's just do this. We'll just chat about what everyone's talking about. I love having this conversation. And this is great.
We'll have a little cocktail party going, and it'll be good. Amsterdam's fun. So
share some more stories and have a great time. I can't wait. Right. Can't wait to see you there. It'll be fun.
Yeah, very cool. Okay, awesome. Well, and to all of our listeners, thank you again for listening. We really appreciate all of you. And until next time, happy encoding.